Hey everyone, welcome back to Wix Ideas. Today I've got a quick and awesome tutorial for you, and that is adding a favorite icon to your repeater in Wix Studio. Now this tutorial can work for Wix Classic sites and for Wix Studio, but for this tutorial I'm adding this feature to Wix Studio. So currently we have a repeater over here that has icons, heart icons or favorite icons, that when you click on them, for example, let's click on this one, you can see that the icon has changed and the count has increased. And then we have this one that has a count here from a different account, and when I click on that, the count also increases and the icon also changes. And as you can see, this one has been hearted, and when I click on it on heart, the icon changes back to an empty heart, and the count has also reduced. So in this tutorial, I'm going to share with you the step-by-step process that I use to create this feature, including adding this repeater to my site and adding this function to my repeater. And if you're excited to join me, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give this video a like, and don't forget to turn on your bell notification to be the first to know of our future videos. Alright, so I'm starting out with this template, which is where I'm going to be adding a repeater to. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to somewhere below this section, and I want to add a new section. So in this section, we're going to add a repeater element and have probably similar design as what this shop app does. So let's go over to this section and add an element. So we can go over to the layout tools and go to repeaters, and you can choose any repeating layout that you want, but I'm going to go ahead and use the first one. So click on the first one, and this is going to be added to your page and the page section. Now that we have our repeater, it's time to make sure that it is full width or stretched out as we have over here. So let's go ahead and click on this icon here, and this is going to stretch it across the entire section. So again, we can click on the repeater, scroll down to this very section where it's the position, and we're going to change the margin, and let's just add 5% of the margin to the left and another 5% to the right. Now we can also do the same thing for the top, 5% on all sides, and that is going to give us some spacing. As you can see, the repeater is just within the section. Now another important part is clicking on an item or any of the items here, and then we're going to add some kind of grid lines to separate the images from the text. So as we have here, we have the image, and then we have the text, and then we have the price. So let's click on this item, and then we're going to head over to the layout here. So we're going to go all the way to the layout and click on apply the CSS grid. Now this is going to give us some more options to work with. We're going to add some grid to it. So here we're going to expand this section, and then we're going to add 2 more rows. So the first row is going to be for the image, second is going to be for the text, and then the last is going to be for the price. So now let's go ahead and go to add, and then let's go to quick add here and go to the image section. So over here, let's drag and drop this image, and here we can align that to the left and then to the top, and then we can stretch that across through the page. We can drag this down to this section so the image is wide enough. And next thing I want to add is a text. So let's go over to text. Over here we can use, probably let's use heading 4 and add it to this section. So now we can reduce the size of this. As you can see, this is quite too large, so I might just want to reduce the font to, let's say, 40 pixel, and I think this is just good enough. Now you can also decide to use the maximum or minimum font size, but I'll definitely want to leave it at a fixed size. Now another thing that we need to do is to duplicate this text, because this is going to be the title. We're going to duplicate this for the price. So when you duplicate that, add it to this section over here. Now when you click on this element and you scroll all the way down, you can see that the grids that we've created are over here, and you can select where you want it to go. So you can make it go to the top, or you can just make it go back to where it's supposed to be. The same thing goes for this one. As you can see, it's on the third. Now we can also change the heading for this. We can just make it a paragraph, and let's say paragraph 1, paragraph 2 is the best paragraph to have for that. Now, most importantly, let's click again on this item and head back to our layout. Over here, we're going to change this min max to max content. We're going to change everything to max content. And the reason for that is because we want the items to fit into the grids. So let's make sure that all the items fit properly into the grid. Now, as you can see, the distance that we have between these two items is quite too small. So what we can do is to have a space between the grids. So scroll all the way down again to the layout, and here you can see we have the vertical gap. So let's add a 10 pixel gap to it. As you can see, it has given it some space to breathe, and I think this is doing well enough. Now, the next thing we want to add is to add a favorite icon or a heart icon. So I recommend going to a flat icon where they have thousands of icons that you can choose from. So as you can see, I searched the word heart, and as you can see, we have tons and tons of icons that you can make use of. So you can choose any of these icons that you want. So I'm going to go with the very first one. And when you click on that one, you can see that we have different variations. We have the empty heart, and then we have the full heart. So what we can do is to download them as SVG, and then we can also go ahead and download the second one as an SVG. Amazing. Now we've downloaded our icons. The next thing we want to do is to go over to add elements, and we want to add that element into our page. So go over to the quick add and go to shapes. Now you can go over here and drag and drop this shape here, and this is something similar to what we want, the kind of size that it is. But what we want to do is to go over to change basic shape, and then we're going to go over to the site files, and then we're going to upload the two icons that we have downloaded. As you can see, we have this heart.svg. They have almost the same name, but you can do well to rename them so that you can easily find them in your media manager. Amazing. So now we can click on this one, for example, and we're going to rename this one and say full heart, and then we can rename this to say empty heart. Great. Another important thing that you can do is to add these icons into a folder. So let's create a folder, and then we can say do not delete. And the reason for doing this is because we're going to be making use of the URLs of these vector images in our code. So we want to make sure that no one deletes these images. If not, the icons are not going to show. So you can highlight them, and then you can drag them into this folder. So this is very important. I'm going to come back to this section later on. However, before that, we're going to go ahead and select the empty heart, which is going to be the default. So click on it and add to your page. Now, as you can see, we've added that icon. So let's drag that out and drag that back in to make sure that it shows on all the other items. So we have one more thing to add, which is the count of how many people who have actually hearted the item. So we can again duplicate this text and then drag it next to this item. So now this is the text element that is going to count how many items have been hearted. So again, we can drag this out and then drag it back in to make sure that it shows the same thing on across all the items. Now, while you are holding on your shift, and I think that is a command for Windows, you can click on these two elements and then we can stack them. Now this is going to help improve on the responsiveness. Now the design of this is entirely up to you. This is just a very basic and quick tutorial to show you how to add this feature to your website. And now we're ready to start writing our code. And so to do that, head over to this code section and then start coding. Now, if you haven't written any code on your page, it might look this way. All right, so now that we are in this section, what we want to do is to start naming the elements that we want to actually use in our code. And one of the elements is the repeater itself. So here we're going to click on the repeater, and over here we're going to change the ID of the repeater, and we're going to call this hearts repeater. And then we're also going to change the IDs of these images or the vector images, and we're going to call this the hearter. And lastly, we're going to change the ID of this text element that displays the heart, and we're going to call it the heart counter. Amazing. Now we're done with this section, and most importantly, what we want to do is to create a database that is going to display our items. So now to do that, head over to CMS here, and then you can go to your collections and then create a collection. If it's your first time you're going to find this view, you're going to click get started, and now you're going to give your collection a name. For me, I'm going to call it store, and the reason for this is because I'm working on a store website, So this name is entirely up to you, but I'm going to show you where you can change this in the code later on. Now make sure to select the multiple items and then click on create. Our store has been created and we have only one field, which is the title field, but then we need to add more field, and the field that we want to add is the image field. So click on the image and then choose field type. So here we can leave it as just an image and click on save. And then next we also need to create the price. So the price could be a text as well, so you can click on select the text and choose field type, and then you can call this price and then save. Now we need to create two other fields that are very important and crucial to this tutorial. We're going to create a field, and the field type is going to be tags. Now we're going to be inserting the IDs of the members who actually clicked or hearted any of the items. So we're going to create a tag field. We're going to choose this type, but we're going to be calling this field members. So we're going to get their IDs and place them into this field. And then another field we're going to create is the field that counts the number of people on the number of members who hearted an item. This is going to be an automated field or a calculated field. So let's go ahead and select a number type field and choose this one. And we're going to call this the heart count. So what that does is going to count the number of tags we have here. It's going to display them right over here. Most importantly, we need to add our items. So I'm going to go ahead and add items to all of these sections. All right, so I'm going ahead to add only 3 items. So you can add as many items as you want. The most important thing is that we want to be able to display items on our repeater. Now go ahead again and click on your repeater and click on this icon that says connect to CMS. Once you click on that, you're going to create a data set. Once you create your data set, you're going to choose what collection you want to connect it to. Now since my collection name is called store, I'm going to click on that, and here you can edit what the name is. So I'm going to leave mine as that and create this data set. Now once the data set has been created, it's time to start connecting our element to that data set. So click on that repeater again and then head over to this section where you can choose what elements you want to connect. So as you can see, when you hover on the element, you can see what elements you need to connect. So let's go ahead and connect our image. Click on that image, connect over here. We can see all the fields that we've created. So we need to connect our image to the image field. We need to connect the alt text to the title and the tooltip to the title as well. Now we can head back, and as you can see, when you connect, it begins to populate the items. We can head back to the title element, and over here we can connect this to the title element. And then the next thing we can connect is the price, and over here, as you can see, we have the price section. But as you can see, the margin between the text element for the price and the repeater is too low. So what we can do is to head back to the design, and we can scroll all the way down to this section, and then we're going to dock this to the bottom and then change this margin to, let's say, 10%. So that's going to give it some space. I think that might be too much, so let's just reduce that to 5, and that is perfect. So now we have everything that we need, and it's time to start writing our code. So to do that, again, head back to your code section, and then we're going to click on code in Wix IDE. You can completely code on this section, but I think it's much better when you code on the Wix IDE. Alright, here we are on our Wix IDE, and if it's your first time writing the code on this page, it's going to show up this way. So head over to SRC, and here you're going to go to the pages. Now when you click on pages, you're going to find all the pages of your website, and you're going to go ahead and open up the one for the page where your repeater is. So for me, this is the home page. And so I'm going to look for the home page over here, and this is where I need to write my code on. Great. Now we need to import 3 libraries. The first one is the Wix data. Now this library is going to help us to get the content from our content manager and also to manipulate the data. The next library we're going to import is the Wix members. Now the Wix member is going to give us 2 items. The first one is the current member. So this is the function that gives us the information about the current member who is currently logged in. And then the next one is authentication, which also gives us another detail about the current member, such as if the member is logged in or not. And finally, the last library we need is the Wix location. So the Wix location is going to give us the information about the current page that we are on. It's also going to help us reload the page later on in this code. Now, most importantly, we need to add our onReady function, which is the function that we use to run the code after the page has loaded. Amazing. So now we have our already function. What we're going to convert this to an async function, and we're going to find out why pretty soon. But first of all, we're going to create two constants. The first constant is going to be the member. So this is where we're going to be making use of our async await function, where we are actually going to get the members information using the current member dot get member. So this holds the information of the current member who is logged in, such as their names, emails, phone numbers, and many more. The next constant we want to create is we want to check if the member is logged in, and we're going to use the help of our authentication, which is over here. So we can just bring that here and then add a function that is logged in. So this is a boolean that checks if the member is logged in or not. So next we're going to write two more constants, which are going to be the constants that holds the URL to the vector images that we imported earlier. So we're going to call this one full heart. I'm just going to leave it empty for now. We're going to leave that as an empty string, and then the next one is going to be the empty heart. So we're also going to do the same thing and leave it as an empty string. But most importantly, we're going to go back to our page, and here you can go back to your dashboard and actually visit your media manager directly from your dashboard. Once you're on your dashboard, head over to the search and look for your media manager. So here we're back to this folder that we created earlier, and as you can see, we have the two icons that we need. The first icon that we need is the full heart, which is this one right here. Once you click on that, head over to file info and go to URL and copy the URL. Now you can use this URL for your own personal project, but I really advise that you download your own icon and upload it into your media manager, because you can definitely use this anywhere. It's just a URL and it's going to load directly in your browser. So let's go ahead and do the same and get the URL for the empty heart icon. So click on that and bring it back to the section and add it here. So as you can see, we're getting very close, and what we want to do is to be able to change the heart based on the action that the user performs. But here is the important part. This is where we actually select our repeater. Remember, we created a repeater earlier and we actually gave it an ID. So click on your repeater, and over here you can see the ID is called heart repeater. But you can head over to the code and you can copy it directly from the properties panel. So click on it and copy it, and you're going to bring it back to your page. And here what you want to do is to use the on item ready, because we want to be able to select one of the items at a time. So now we're going to add a callback function to this section, and what we're going to do is to add a selector to our repeater item. So we can use the $W, and actually I can just use the $item just to indicate that we're selecting one item at a time. And then we're also going to get the item data. So for each of the items that we click on, we want to get their data. Now we have successfully created a platform where we can start writing the main part of the code. Now what we want to do is that each time that we click on an item, we want to check if the member has actually liked or hearted the item. Now remember that when we created this item, let's head over to the databases and let's open this up. We have this field which is called members, and members is a tag field, and normally this tag field is an array kind of field. So what we want to do is that each time that the user clicks on an item, we want to check if the user has already hearted the item. If the user hearted the item, their ID will be inserted here, and if the user has not hearted the item, their ID won't be here. So based on the action that they have not done yet, we want to update their info over here. All right, so now let's take a look at what the item data is. We're going to add an onClick function to this vector image over here. So when the user click on this, let's get their item data. So let's take this icon, and we have again that the icon ID is called hearter, and then we're going to add an onClick function to this icon. Now remember that we're trying to select one item at a time, so we need to change this $W to $item. So this is what the repeater on item ready is supposed to give us for each of the items. So let's go ahead and enter in our console.log and copy this data. So let's paste that right in. We can click on save, and over here we can click on publish, and then we can view this page on a live site. So let's view this site. Amazing. So we're here on the live site. As you can see, our item has been published. So on your browser, right click and then go to inspect, and then over here go to the console, and then let's scroll right back down. So let's click on this one, for example, the beige unisex pants. Click on that and let's go to info. And as you can see, we have some console information here, and when you expand that, you can see the image over there. You can see the price, which is 20, and you can see the title is the beige unisex pants. Now when we click on this one, we're going to find another information about this particular item. As you can see, this is the price, which is $10, and the title is the denim jacket patches. So that is what the on item ready repeat on item ready does for us. And what we want to do is to work with individual item at a time, and that is also why we use the $on item to get each item data one at a time. Now we need to create another constant. So this is the constant that is going to represent an array that holds the member information. So we're going to call this the item data. Again, the item data holds the particular items data, and then we're going to get the members, which is the field key for the field that holds all the member IDs. So again, let's go back to our collection, and here is the field that holds all the member IDs. If you click on edit, you can find the field key over here, so you can copy that and bring it back to your code. So put it over here, and what you want to do is, if it is empty, there is nothing there, we want to make it an empty array, because remember that the tag field is an array. So if there is nothing there, we want to keep it as an empty array. So we're going to store all of the member IDs there throughout the code. Now another variable that we're also going to create is one that checks if the current member has hearted an item. So we're going to call that member has heart. And remember that we're going to check again if the member is logged in. First, we want to check if the member is logged in and that the member actually has a heart, or has an item that they've favorited, or has an item that they've hearted. So let's go ahead and use the member array. Remember, the member array is holding the members field. So we're going to search through that field, and we're going to use the index of to check the member's ID. Now this is where we actually use the member information, and we're going to use the dot notation to get the member's ID. Now remember that we're inserting the member ID into that member's field, and we're going to use the index of to check the field for the member ID. Now we're going to make sure that the member actually has an item, or is not equal to -1. It's going to make sure that the member actually has a heart, and if it returns as true, then this will work. So this is a boolean that checks if the member has a heart or not. So I might have added too many curly braces here, so we can delete that. And then inside of our onClick function, we're going to do one important thing, and that is we're going to check if the member is logged in. So this only works if the member is logged in, because we need the member ID. So here we're going to check if member is logged in, which is over here. Then we want to perform all the actions that we want. Else, if the member is not logged in, then what we want to do is we want to prompt the user to log in. So we're going to make use of the authentication over here, dot prompt login. And then most importantly, when the user has logged in, we want to reload the page. And the reason for reloading the page is because we want to make sure that the code loads properly for them to be able to heart the item. So we're going to use the weeks location over here, .to, and then inside here we're going to change that to, we're going to add weeks location.url, which is the URL of the current page. So once the login, the page is going to reload, the code is going to refresh for them, and then they can successfully add or heart an item. Now when they are logged in already, we're going to also check a couple of things, and one of the things we want to check is the index of the member. So we're going to create a variable called user index, and then we're going to check through this member array here, which is the item data for the members field, and check the index of the member in that particular field. So again, we're going to use the member.id. Now this is going to give us the index of where the user is in that particular field. I'm going to show you later on how this works, because different people can heart different items and we need to find their position in that particular field, and to do that we need the index. So let's go ahead again and run some more conditions. And the first condition we want to run is to check if the member does not have a hearted item yet. So here we're going to say that if the user's index is -1, which means the member has nothing, then we're going to now add their ID to that field. And to do that, we're going to get this member array and we're going to push the user ID of the member into that array. So let's again get the member info here and then add their ID or push their ID into the member array. All right, and then once we're done with that, we want to do something important, and that is we want to change this icon. So again, click on this icon and go back to your page code, copy the ID, which is what we already have here, and then use the item selector to select this particular ID. And then we're going to change the source of this one to the full heart, which is this variable that we had earlier. Amazing. So if the user has actually something, that means the user actually already hearted the item. We want to do the reverse of what we have here. So we can copy this one, but instead of actually pushing an item, we want to use the splice method to remove the user ID from that particular field. So we're going to remove from that index, the user's index, from that particular field, and we want to remove only one item. And again, we're going to change the heart here to empty heart. Great, so we're almost done here, but remember that we need to return or update this member data. In order for us to do that, we need to go ahead and use the item data.members. So if you remember correctly, we did the same thing here. This is the item data. So we need to take the item data, and the field that we need to update is called members field. So that is what we've been doing right over here. So we're going to get this field, and then we're going to assign this array that we've been working with to it. Amazing. And then we're going to now use the weeks data that we have created, and we are going to update the collection. So as you can see over here, this is the syntax. We need to add the collection ID, and then we need to add the item or the data that we want to update. So here we need to first of all add the ID of the store. So let's go back to the code, and we can go to databases. We can go over here and we can click on edit settings. So here we have the collection ID. So copy this collection ID, bring it back to your code, add it here, and then we need to now return or update the item data. Now, after we have updated the item data, we're going to use the .then method to actually show the total number of counts, or the total number of items that we have in our heart count field. So let's use the .then method to use the item selector for our text. So this is the text over here. So let's head back to the page code and heart counter and add that over here and change the text to be equal to, let's use the template later on, and then we're going to use the $W and use the item data to get the total count. So if we go back to our collection right over here, so this is the field where we want to pull in the total number of people who have hearted. So click on this to edit and copy this field key. Now once we're done, we're going to bring it back to this section, and this is going to help us to get the total number of people who have actually hearted an item. Now remember that we have our on click right from here to this section. So let's go down here. We need to do one thing that is very important, and that is when the page loads, we need to load if the member has already hearted the item, and we also need to load the total number of counts or the total number of hearts that we have. So here we're going to get this one over here. We're going to get the hearter selector, bring it right over here, and this is what we're going to check. We're going to get to this section. I'm going to say if the member has a heart If this is true, then what we want to do is we want to use the full heart. We want to change the icon to full heart. If not, we want to change it to an empty heart. Now this is all done. Now the next thing we want to do also is to load the total number of items that were hearted. Now let's bring this one right here. Now this is going to work pretty well, but the only thing that we're going to have, the only situation that we're going to have is that if it's empty, is going to say undefined. So we want to add our own custom word to it. So if this particular item here, if the item data.heart count is equal to undefined, then what we want to do is to want to add a 0 to it. It needs to say 0. If not, then it needs to actually say the actual amount of count that we have. Almost there, we're almost completed. And before we get into the next section, if you're enjoying this tutorial so far, please don't forget to subscribe and also give this video a thumbs up. Now the most important thing that we need to do is, remember I mentioned that we need to automate the field, which is the heart count field. This is going to be a calculated field. So what we're going to do is that we're going to head back to this collection, click on these dots, and then we're going to add a data hook. Now we're going to add a data hook before we insert the item and after we update the item. So add and edit code. Now this is going to pull up to this section. So normally you should see it just here in the back end, data.js. After creating that, you're going to find it right here. Now this is what I'm going to do. We're going to go back again to our collection to make things pretty easy, and we're going to get the ID of this field, or the field key of this field, and then we're going to use the item. Remember we have this item here, so this is how we actually select the field. We're going to get the item.heart count, and we're going to say this should be equal to this field over here, or the length of that field. So again, we're going to use the item to select that field dot length. So this is all we need to do, and then we just need to say return item. Great, and then we can just do exactly the same thing for this particular field. But let's go ahead and publish our page and then test this code. All right, so right here, and I think we needed to perform one more action, and the action we needed to perform was to make sure that this store allows login members to actually add things to it. So let's go to permissions and privacy, and we're going to change a couple of things in the privacy. So who can view? Anyone can view, but who can add? We need site members. Who can delete? We need site members. And who can update? We need site members. So this should be the final operation that we need to perform in order for us to add item to our collection. All right, so when we get over here and we click on this item, you can see over here I'm not logged in. So when we scroll all the way down and I actually click on that, you can see that the login was prompted. So I have to log in before I can actually heart an item. So I've just logged in now, and as you can see, the page has just refreshed, and this is going to give me a new slate to write on. So when I click on that item, you can see that my hearts icon has changed, and the number of hearts has also been increased. When I click on that again, it's been removed. When I click on that again, it's been added. Now let's take a look at our collection to see how that works. We're going to see this particular beige unisex pants, and as you can see, this is it. And over here it looks like our count is currently not working as we want it to. So we're going to go ahead and inspect to see what errors that we are getting. So let's head over here, and it seems like we do not have any errors at the moment, but we might just want to refresh this page to take a look at how that works. All right, so the reason why the calculation doesn't work properly is because we're using after updates, and that kind of messes up the data, and the best thing to use is the before updates. So once that is done, let's go ahead and publish the page. Let's make sure that our changes are live, and let's update and see how that works. All right, now we've refreshed our page, and if we click on an item, this should automatically update the total count. And if we head back to our collection, this should also make effect of what we have done. So again, we can let's deselect this one, for example. This is the beige, and we can also refresh to see, and as you can see, that's calculated properly. Now what I want to do is to heart this item, and I'm going to log out from this account and log into a different account. All right, so I've logged in and the page is attempting to reload, and it has just successfully reloaded. And still this account is not connected or hearted any of these items. But if I go ahead and heart this, you can see the number has increased. And if we go ahead and just look at these again, you can see we have 2 IDs, and this is how the tags or the array actually works, and the count also increases. So this is how you add a like or a heart icon to your Wix Studio website. Again, this works entirely well for Wix Classic sites. It works for Editor X and also again for Wix Studio. So if you want to add a heart or a like icon or a voting, some kind of voting icon to your Wix Studio website, then this is the right tutorial for you. If you know this tutorial was very useful for you, please do not forget to smash that subscribe button, give this video a like, and also leave me a comment in the comment section if you have any question. You can also visit wixideas.com if you want to have or see more of tutorials such as this. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.